Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Robin Queren. I work for VMware. I'm part of the global team for cloud technologists. So we're going to do a quick conversation here, then I'll hand it off to Michael. The idea here that we're going to be discussing is obviously VMware Cloud, but also where we were, what's changed. And I want to put one idea on the table here and talk about one product. So you want me on the stage? That's what you want? Okay. It's even more blinding than down there. So in our role, we talk to customers and partners. We're working through new strategies on how to be successful in cloud. The idea here is if you think about VMware's vision, I'm just making an assumption that most people are familiar that we had an idea. 2003, we really came out to market. We're going to virtualize some servers. And this was obviously a lot of value, changed the industry, and made a big difference for both IT organizations and their stakeholders. Well, things have changed. So this is the VMware Vision today. I've been working on this for about 4 years. And when I first saw this, I wasn't too convinced. Meaning I knew there was a range of investments, culture change, technologies that all had to come into place for our customers to be successful, in particular with an any cloud vision. The idea with any cloud is you can use any cloud endpoint, any cloud service, and you get value quickly and can be confident in it that it's going to be secure. So what's driving cloud? Our customers want to go faster. I'm almost tired of hearing the word agility. But really, cloud's been a success, but it's created its own issues. So if you think about what cloud is, I mean, in terms of the problems, cloud is a number of new silos and increased risk. This is new challenges, complexity, obscurity. You just might not know what's going on. But it's not a good definition of the value of cloud. So if we think back a bit, here's my fun point. I think cloud is a feeling. Meaning the people who make decisions about cloud aren't just in IT anymore. And their idea of what cloud is going to be is informed by their experience on their mobile phone. Is it cheap? Is it fast? Will it meet my objectives? So I'm just having fun here. The industry has responded with, well, cloud's a destination. That could be the private cloud. It could be Amazon, Azure. If I just get to the cloud, that'll solve my problems. And here's my big idea. My proposition, and this is where VMware is going, is cloud as an operating model. How do we ensure our customers and their stakeholders are successful? The innovation, the agility, the speed, the flexibility, the advantages, and the cost benefits in cloud are captured in the operating model, and people who attend conferences like Trace3 is putting on, that's the big topic. How do we make this real? How do we create value for our stakeholders? And so if you dig into this a bit, and I'll do this quickly, to me cloud is personal, meaning everyone as part of the operating model has a stake in it. And the operating model isn't just IT anymore, and I'll just do this quickly. Think about it. We have 3 groups of people in operating models. One is code. Each one of these individuals exclusively uses code to meet their objectives. Could be the developer. They want to, I do things once. I don't want to do it again when I go to another cloud. It could be the people in charge of the release. They just want to get things through the pipeline. They want to know what's going on. They want to monitor success or failure. Or it's the support teams. Second group would be cloud as performance. Now this may not just be technical. You have individuals using cloud to meet their business objectives. First one might just be, we need to go fast, reach a new market, and I want those savings. Probably the most important one is the one that cares about the outcomes. They don't care about the savings. They just want a capability. Can I trust it? Am I going to get what I pay for? Would I pay for this out of my budget? Last one, obviously, the IT groups. Does it work? And then the last category would be control. This is often where we've started. We enable self-serve and governance. We have policy adherence, value, security, compliance. So these are all the people that are in the room in a cloud initiative. So if cloud is an operating model, these are stakeholders. They all want something out of it. This did not matter 7 years ago when they had to come to IT to get their digital needs supported, systems running. They can go and get these things themselves. So at the center of the story, obviously, is the line of business, because the executives are looking over their shoulder, asking them, are we going to get the results that you promised? So I'll just go through a quick sandwich here, and then I'll get to a product solution that you may not be aware of. Self-driving ops is about if I have a private cloud or hybrid cloud, can I operate like Amazon? Can I see the future, know what I need 9 months out? Service operations, provisioning using automation, adhering to policy, doing that for both public cloud and multi-cloud. Now what's changed? You've heard all this before from VMware. Well, what's changed is all those stakeholders, especially the technical ones, we have a cross-cloud API across all the range of services. vSphere, Azure, Amazon, GCP, VMC on VMware Cloud. So I can actually provide API-based consumption with a little bit of governance for these stakeholders, and then I have metric APIs in place as well. So it's teasing out what's new that you may not be aware of. So these are a range of new offerings that you may not know. So I'm going to highlight one. It's the middle layer, Cloud Assembly, Service Broker, and CodeStream. So if I'm going to enable a cloud operating model, I usually have this problem. 10 years ago, we'd have a service provider model ideally inside our organizations. Day 0 we design, day 1 we deploy, day 2 we operate, maybe it ends someday and reclaim it. Now, today, surprise, you start in day 2 often. It's already in production. How do you deal with that dynamic? Just posing a question. Because the public cloud has unique operational challenges. So are we going to build an operational model for our data center investments that are critical and then start new silos of operations in the public cloud? It's very difficult to do. So my quick story to end this off is, how do you succeed with a mashup cloud? Say I've got a system of record running on Oracle in the data center, and its key mission critical app, it belongs in the data center. I might have a mobile tier, was born in the clouds, living in AWS. I'd have a partner component running in Azure with extended Active Directory or Office 365 into that component. I might have some analytics running in GCP or some third-party server. This is what I mean about the value of a cloud operating model, because most organizations have a little bit, or if not a lot, of that mashup cloud today. So the idea here is, how does my CIO or my architect get stakeholders involved? That could be an SRE, or give her promotion. It could be the chief digital officer. They're getting more budget to build new initiatives supporting both data center investments and public cloud investments. So this is the thing that, if you think about it, we have 4 categories of investments in public cloud. We're trying to get there, trying to scale there. We're also looking at unifying our hybrid and multi-cloud ops, but we may also be doing next-gen applications, refactoring, Kubernetes, cloud-native services. So these are 3 offerings under cloud automation services that we've launched earlier this year. Cloud Assembly, infrastructure as code, blueprints, go quickly. Work like a developer would, but have the mandate that the IT organization has for quality, best practices, performance. Service Broker, just a little bit of governance, just enough guardrails to allow the organization to say yes to a public cloud endpoint or service. And then CodeStream, tying it together so you can see the life cycle of this collateral that you're building out. iChart slide, here's just a quick tidbit on what's new. In Cloud Assembly, I can do discovery of everything I have running in vSphere, Amazon, AWS, and bring it into an infrastructure as code operating model. What's exciting about that is I don't have to start from scratch in day 0 and day 1 and then provision and bring it under management. I can actually discover what I already have and also use the rich services in RDS, Azure, GCP as part of that. This is not just about a VM and an OS and an app. And then Service Broker allows you to bring in collateral from other components, ARM templates, CloudFormation templates, Helm charts, and bring just enough governance so IT can be the group that's always saying yes. Development wants a staging environment. Great, yes, answer is yes. You could use that underutilized tiny little Azure endpoint, and in a week, well, the lease expires and you re-provision it when you go into production back into the data center where it belongs without having to re-architect everything from scratch. And then there's obviously CodeStream. I don't want to disrupt what developers are doing. They got to a cloud operating model first. They already have a rich set of tools today that are working for them. CodeStream allows them to continue to use what they have, but then call out to what we have in cloud automation services, cross-cloud, cross-cloud endpoint, cloud-native services, and start getting value right away. So this has just been a quick overview of cloud as an operating model. Building out reference use cases to help our customers be successful in cloud as an operating model. There's a lot of solutions, and feel free to approach us and look online at cloud.vmware.com, working with partners like Trace3 to help our customers be successful. It's a range of opportunities, but ultimately, it's an opportunity to make your stakeholders in part of your conversation about how you add value with your technology and the skill sets that you already have. And then obviously providing value to the line of business. So with that, I think I'll hand it over to Michael. Thank you.
Thanks, Robin. So, hey everybody. For those of you who haven't met me, I'm Mike Aossey. I lead our cloud solutions group here at Trace3. And just for 2 seconds, because I think that I talk to a ton of customers who don't know really what my team does. We are a dedicated group of consultants, architects, and engineers who focus on transformation towards DevOps and solutions that involve some component of public cloud. That you may be going, okay, the public cloud guy, I have this AWS Lambda problem that I can't figure out. Like, give me a guy to help with that. And we probably can. But really what we want to do is talk to you about how you're enabling your business and reducing time to value. And that usually involves some components of strategy. So what I'm going to walk you through today is a quick look at sort of high level, the things that you probably need to consider if you really want to do things fast and at scale, and really serve the constituents of your organization that Robin just kind of highlighted what some of those are. I'm hitting the wrong button. So I think the first and most important step, and for those of us that were here yesterday and heard Magic Johnson talk, like there was one thing that jumped out at me is that you have to understand your customer, right? And this is often overlooked when people start this journey. If you don't take the time to map out who the people are that are actually going to use your cloud solution, and if that downstream means your private cloud in your privately owned data center, if it means Amazon, if it means Microsoft, if it means Alibaba, Google, whatever is behind all of this, they really don't care. What they care about is the cost and the constraints of the platform and how they're going to interface with it. So taking the time to understand who these people are, what interface they want into the system, and how they're going to interact with it is really the most key step. And I think when people try and endeavor into this, oftentimes they take their internal staff and they try and talk to everybody and get some picture, or the loudest group that wants to go to cloud first sort of gets to define what's actually needed. So what we find is that if you provide a facilitated approach across your business to start those dialogues and really document and get everybody on the same page about what's really needed and how they want to use the solution, you eliminate biases or somebody saying that wasn't my decision, and it really serves as a foundation or a roadmap to kind of do what I think we've all seen Amazon do really well, is go back to what does the customer need, right? So if you don't listen to anything else in this today, focus on your customer, right, and start your process there. That's the biggest thing. Now, ultimately, those customer interfaces need to go into a common platform that IT can manage and provide visibility back to the consumers and to auditors and other people that are interested in what's happening. So this really all is an interface into a pipeline or an automation system that is going to help you flow workloads out to the places where they're supposed to be. And when people start to build this, we think about a CI/CD solution like Jenkins or CloudBees or some of these other things. But what we don't think about is really the fact that, like, if we're building something that somebody has to adhere to, it's often difficult for people to get behind it, right? So you want to build this in a way that we can extend their existing application workflows, their consumption processes into the pipeline to, again, provide a central location for state management, visibility, testing, and ultimately providing a paved path for them to use the things that are trusted and governed by IT. We don't want to tell people, no, you can't do it that way. Again, just like Robin said, we want to start with yes if we're really acting in the service provider mode, because these folks are our customers at this point. And thinking about it through that lens is really going to help you be successful when you're starting to build some of this out. So what's in this pipeline, right? It becomes the focal point of really what IT is doing and managing and improving all the time. So this really involves a ton of different concepts. We start with application security in a lot of cases because we all know security is top of mind for all we do. There could be fast flow tools here to automate things like testing, provisioning of infrastructure, deprovisioning of infrastructure, state management, all of these DevOps concepts we talk about. And even as we start to mature it, we can start to see things like, hey, can we provide the ability to now do immutable infrastructure? How are we going to build images and lessen the time to deployment if we're composing and doing configuration on top of those images once they're deployed? So there's a progression of getting things centralized and getting the workflow built, and then starting to add features and capabilities on top of that. So we will, ultimately downstream go to some destination. And the goal here is to provide the flexibility when you're building this to take your consumer inputs and say, where does this workload belong? And I think one of the important things to point out is that sometimes means there's a cost element, right? So how do we make an intelligent decision within this overall system that we built about where to place that workload, not only from the standpoint of data sensitivity, what the language, if there's an app being developed and the technology used to create that app, but also where is it cost effective to run that application at? And then where do we really have appropriate governance if there are things we can control inside of our private data center versus some of the public cloud facilities. So we don't want the user to have to worry about that necessarily. They can have inputs to that, but ultimately we want to give them a service to run their application and have them focus on that service. So one of the things that we want to make sure too as we build out our pipeline is that we're moving not only to the standpoint of deployment where the app's running and instantiated, but what are we doing with that afterwards? So the first step is kind of getting it out there. And a policy engine is sort of one of the key components of this pipeline when you first build it, because for us to move quickly, or for the business to move quickly, and again, shorten that time to value cycle, we want to make sure that they're doing things safely and without manual intervention. So those two things are sometimes, sort of counterpoints to each other. But really, if we say these are the things that this particular persona, again, going back to like focusing on our consumer, is allowed to do and have access to, they will have agreed to that. They know what resources are available to them, and they can push, whether that's through a service catalog, through infrastructure as code, their deployment of their application out to the target infrastructure. And if there's something that doesn't meet with policy, it will get defeated, and the user will quickly understand that that's why it got defeated. So creating that feedback loop to tell them what's happening. IT doesn't have to get involved to approve it. They don't have to get involved to tell them what happened and why the deployment failed. It's already there because we've built logic and we've built intelligence into the pipeline. And then again, once we get this up and running, IT really becomes sort of this becomes their application to own, and they're iterating on it, continually updating the capabilities of the policy engine and what the pipeline is able to do overall. I think one of the biggest themes that we see, and it's a good opportunity to highlight our sponsor and our partner VMware, is cost optimization after things are running, and this kind of goes beyond the initial deployment. Is like, are the things that I deployed, if I said I want this particular VM type or instance type inside of a public cloud to run for this application, and I'm only using 50% of the resources on that instance, I'm still paying for all of those resources. So getting a continual look at where I can drive down cost, and again, providing interfaces and feedback back to the user on where they can make changes, and allowing them to iterate on their application the same way that they deployed it. I can update this config file, push a change to Git, and my app recomposes at a scheduled time during a change window, or on the fly if we have a process to safely deploy into production during work hours. The governance component. What are my security policies? What are my password change policies? Simple things that don't necessarily restrict the user from doing what they need to do, but help us audit and keep compliant from the standpoint of oversight and IT governance. There's a ton of great features, again, in like the Cloud Health platform, for example. There are a ton of purpose-built tools that help with that, and many of the cloud platforms themselves, depending on what your target infrastructure deployment is, have tools to provide this governance as well. And we'd be remiss if we didn't mention security. That needs to be in all the things we do. And that may be in the form of application code testing. It may be there from the standpoint of like configuration management and making sure clients and other agents for scanning are there, and that we're adhering to standards for compliance and overall security in the environment. So the biggest thing with all of this is as you start to build complexity, you need to make sure that the user knows what's going on. Again, in the theme of moving fast, we want to enable them to do the things that they need to do to move the business forward without IT being a bottleneck in there, But if they don't know why things break, then we're reactive because we weren't part of the process, and we slow things down even more. So as we start to add these different layers and different tools and different capabilities into our pipeline that we're managing and providing back to the business as a service, we need to make sure that we're providing at least documentation on where the interfaces are, where to get data from, and in often cases, we want to comprise all of that data and all of those outputs into a centralized, single pane of glass to allow them to see that stuff in a central location. So not a super complicated, concept, but really 4 simple sort of points that have a lot of complexity involved in each one. But if you kind of start, again, with the consumer, go through looking at what you're going to actually offer them as a service and not focus on what the downstream target infrastructure is, you'll start to provide an experience that looks a lot like Amazon and a lot like Microsoft Azure, except you can control leveraging your existing investments, onboarding capabilities sooner rather than later because you don't have to migrate these apps necessarily to the cloud to get some of the cloud capabilities of the overall platform. I just want to take on my last slide a minute to say my team has dedicated solutions architects that focus on all of what I just talked about. Most of them are back in the back of the room if anybody's interested in connecting with them. We'll also be over at the booth area after this, and we have some cool t-shirts that we would love to give you and get you some nerd cred out on the street if you're interested in picking them up. And with that, I'll give you guys a few minutes back and say thank you all for your attention.